Ladies and gentlemen, in just a moment you are going to hear the voice of a man who will tell you some tremendously important facts, some amazing facts. The voice of a man who has made a discovery that is revolutionizing human thought.
Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I have a very special episode today. We have Mike Dooley, Lyssa Royal Holt, and Daniel Scranton all together, and we're going to discuss this amazing new book, The Great Awakening, that discusses our amazing shift and transition into a higher density, new dimensional Earth. And this book that is coming out in October is absolutely amazing. It has a number of amazing authors that we've talked, Sara Rachele, Matt Kahn, Darryl Anka. It has Daniel Scranton, Lyssa Royal Holt, and Jessie Herman. And they're all discussing what we have been talking about on the channel for several years now, this amazing shift into a higher level of consciousness. What is truly amazing about this shift is that channelers from all over the world are talking about the same things. There's very, very little contradiction for the high-level channels about what is happening in the shift. So it's really amazing to see diverse perspectives from different channelers about this shift that we're going through. We can learn so much about ourselves spiritually from these channels. So welcome everyone to the Reality Revolution.
Great to be here, Brian. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
We're looking forward for our discussion today. It's wonderful to be with all of you together.
So for people, we've had Daniel on the channel, and Daniel channels 12th Density Arcturian Council, among a number of other amazing channels. The creators have been channeling since 2010. Lyssa is the Seed of Life Institute, and she channels an entity called Sasha, who is a fourth density Pleiadian. And Mike, which we recently interviewed, you know from The Secret, and his many, many amazing books that he has written. And Mike was the catalyst that brought these channelers together. So I'd like to talk to you, Mike. First of all, we talked about this a little bit. What inspired you again to really focus and bring channelers to discuss this amazing thing that's happening on the planet?
Yeah, well, it was something that just kind of took me over, if you will. I did not set out to find channelers and probe the questions that I ended up tossing to them. It was more that my life had taken me to a place where I had achieved a lot of manifesting success, something I teach about. I was on the balcony of our home in Mexico overlooking the ocean, and I was like, and this is 2019, and I was like, there's got to be more. My cups were overflowing, and I had always known in the back of my mind about these stories of ascended masters. Jesus is one, Buddha, Babaji, and there's a list. And they had said that the things they did, we could do. And I was like, I've got the props and the toys and the circumstances. I know there's got to be more. Do I really need to go to Tahiti 7 times? That's not where the answer is. And serendipitously, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. At that point in my life, I had crossed paths with Sara Landon. She's featured in the book.
Mm-hmm.
She channels the council, and they had a message for me. Her council had a message referring to me as an ascended master, and it was time to take my place at the table with other ascended masters. I mean, really sensational stuff, and I took it with a mighty grain of salt. But serendipitously, and serendipities are how the magic creeps into our lives when you're least expecting it. Serendipitously, at that time, I was reading, finally, an autobiography of a yogi about these yogis in India who were actually performing what anybody would call miracles, bilocation, teleportation, ascension, a long, long list. And it gave validity to my suspicions that there could be much more to my life than simply, manifesting stuff. I wanted to, get to a place where there'd be just deep peace and absolute acceptance of everything and greater ease in my life, just so that I could see the beauty and be in awe of every second of my life. And so these forces came together. The council had a lot to share on what it meant to raise your vibrations, steps on how to get there, practical stuff. And my mind was just sizzling with excitement. And that began the process of me, for my selfish reasons, seeking out greater and additional resources to compound this information, to patch in the holes where there was gaps. I did a Google search on Amazon, or an Amazon search, and I found this guy, Daniel Scranton. Daniel Scranton tells me about Lyssa Royal Holt. I had a session with each of them with the intention of maybe bringing their teachings to the world, as I wanted to bring the council's teachings to the world. They say you teach best what you most need to learn. And so, to a degree, while I found these teachers, I've been setting it up so that they can share. As I'm being lit up, audiences could be lit up. And by having multiple voices in what I devised to be an online course that ran for 6 weeks back in 2022, by having these multiple voices, like you said at the outset, it's amazing how they just piece together. And even when, although quite rare, there seems to be, something that doesn't line up. Lyssa said this and Daniel said that. That doesn't jive. But when you kind of sit with it, dwell upon it, ask for guidance and enlightenment, all of a sudden you have that aha moment where a piece of the puzzle that had been missing all along now falls into place. Added confirmation, greater excitement. So I found what I believe to be the 6 best spoken individuals, authors. They're all just as brilliant and enlightening out of trance as in trance. And we did the awakening adventure, and we had thousands and thousands of people. Everyone was lit up. This is exciting stuff. It doesn't get any cooler in time and space than self-mastery. And those are almost the words of Sasha from Lyssa Royal Holt. It's got to begin with self. I'm like, I just want the miracles. No, you got to master yourself. But nothing gets any better than that. You become absolutely Teflon. You recognize the truth of your magnificence. You know you're a divine, eternal being. And then what you most want to do is help more people find out these same truths, because it's so fun. And so after the event was done, it was clearly begging to be a book. At least that's the voices, what I was listening to, hearing internally. And everyone was game. Everyone said, yes, let's do this. Everyone contributed, participated. It was like, it's been a really cool experience. Putting together this material, getting additional insights, fashioning a book out of it. And as you said, in 2 weeks, it is available. And even now it can be pre-ordered. So long answer for your short question.
Well, everybody's, there's going to be a link in the description and in my comments where you can pre-purchase that book. It's important, and share it with your friends, leave feedback for the book. The amazing thing about this book, and I got the wonderful chance to read this book, so I'm telling everybody, please purchase this book. What I found amazing about it was that it's more than just a discussion of what happens in higher levels of consciousness. It is a user's guide. It's a manual. This book gives you instructions on how to navigate the spiritual journey that we're on, moving from this 3rd density Earth to a 4th density. And each of the perspectives adds another puzzle piece for how on a daily basis we can go through this process of raising our consciousness. That is very important information, because the energies that we're dealing with are intense, and it's not all just lovey-dovey peace. But when we get these perspectives, I found it much easier to maneuver in this process of awakening. Seems like it gets a little bit more intense every day. And so there's meditations that are offered, there's instructions. Every one of the chapters adds another element. And so I'd like to get your perspective, Lyssa. When we talk about the new earth, how did that come to you before you started channeling, and what have you sort of learned? And tell me your perspective on this shift that is happening on the planet.
Well, I'm kind of an old timer, so I started my channeling in the 1980s. Before that, a couple of years before I started channeling, I was an attendee at Darryl Anka's channelings, Bashar. And back then it was just a few people in the living room. It was really amazing.
Wow.
And so he laid out back then this idea of this new reality that was being born. And I remember thinking back then, oh, this is going to be thousands of years in the future. It can't possibly be manifesting in my life now. Well, here we are 40 years later, and I'm starting to see that there's a disintegration process that I think we could agree we're all experiencing, where a lot of the old is really needing to say goodbye, and the new is trying to be born in so many of the facets of our reality here on Earth. But the one thing that's consistent is that the teachings I've received from Darryl back in the 80s, and also the teachings that I have been channeling myself, are coming to pass. And I'm not saying it's like a prophetic thing. It's more pointing to what's happening to us on an internal level, that our consciousness can no longer sustain the way we have been, which is primarily like a polarized type of view of reality. We're coming to the point where that point of view and that way of being is exhausting for us. And unless we can allow ourselves to transcend to a new way of being, which is kind of an integration of the polarities in a certain way, that transition might feel for us rougher and also maybe look rougher on the outer view of the reality. So basically, to summarize, I mean, that's a long answer to what you've asked. I could talk a long time, but I'm seeing what has been laid out when I began this journey 40 years ago coming to pass now in ways that are extraordinary. You know, we hear all about all the negativity. What we don't hear about is all the revelation, is all the awakening, is all the beauty, is all the change that so many of us are experiencing. First on an internal level, and then we can start to see those seeds blossoming in the outer world. So that's what I'm seeing, and that's what's really exciting about this process.
Yeah, I feel the same thing. I've been reading about it for such a long time, but we're living it.
Yeah.
And I can't even, there's no words that can really describe it. We are doing our best with these channels in this book, but it's a heart-based energetic alignment that cannot be described.
Yes.
And so I get a lot of a time when I'm talking to other people, it's like how do you describe this thing that can't be described? It's exciting, something exciting about that. Daniel's been talking about the new earth and the ascension process for a long time, and I'd like to get your personal perspective on the shift, your experience of going through the shift, and what you think is happening and how it's affected you.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When I look at the whole entirety of my life and how things unfolded, I do believe it's all orchestrated, and that all I had to do was continue to say yes to things, and things unfolded in these magical ways for me that I can't really take responsibility for as an ego and say, yeah, I did that. This is happening because I'm so great. It's more like I'm just meant to go through all these phases of life, being like raised in this conservative Catholic family that went to church every Sunday and buying into it, having a mom who taught catechism, and then going to Catholic high school and just being completely enveloped in those ideas, and then going to Boston University and exploring all these other ideas that basically converted me to being an atheist for a while. And then
Right.
going to the next phase, which I totally didn't intend to wake up spiritually. It wasn't something I was seeking. I couldn't have described myself as a seeker, but all the things falling into my lap so magically and introducing me to channeling. And I find it really interesting that my first love was the Seth books when it came to channeling, and Jane Roberts passed on in 1984, which is weird when you think about it. When you think about this woman in her 50s channeling the most amazing body of work that we've ever seen, and then she passes on. And her husband was like 20 years older than her, and he lived forever. and,
Right.
but kept publishing more of Seth material. But then in that 1984 time, which is, the harmonic convergence was 87. And then you have Lyssa starting out, and Darryl starting out, and Esther Hicks starting out, and all these branches that kind of continued the work of Jane Roberts to put this message out there, of like, this is how you do it. This not only is reality created and is it you who are the creator, but this is how it fundamentally works, and how you can be the one who's driving the train that you're on. And the one thing I really love about the perspectives that are brought forth in the book is that none of these people are saying that ascension is something that's just going to happen because of a solar flash. It's not just happening because economies are going to crumble. It's not just happening because this person will be elected into office. It's not just happening because ships are going to land and the good people will be taken to another Earth and everybody else will stay behind. These are all perspectives that say it all begins with you, and you're the one creating this. You're the creator of your own simulation, and here's how you work within your simulation to create a better lucid dream for yourself and everyone else. And you'll see that reflection back to you in the reality that you're in if you just shift yourself, shift within here first. Then you'll see it reflected in the outer reality. But it's not about all these dominoes falling and you just sitting back in your chair and watching and going, okay, great, now I can leave my house and take off my tinfoil hat.
What I would like to ask is, I find it a fascinating perspective, suddenly being a creator and sharing these perspectives on a regular basis. I've got a chance to interact with my community, and so many people feel like that's why we're here. Like a lot of people that come to me, that talk to me, say so inspired, like I came to this planet to be a part of this transition, and it's happening, and I see people get lit up like that's why I'm here. That's my soul's purpose, to help in this transition. I was wondering your perspectives, if you've encountered this as well, where people are sharing that they're here for this shift, and it's a part of why we're here.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think there is this synchronicity. Everything is by design. Everything has order, meaning, purpose, and that any of us are here, that says a lot. I mean, this is the time when we are literally, as a civilization, for the first time in all history, including Atlantean and Lemurian history, this is the first time planet Earth, since, time began, is moving from the darkness into the light. This is the final battle, as I shared with you before in your audience, Brian. This is Armageddon, not indicating the end of the world, but indicating one style of living is about to perish, and that is the fear-driven agendas of one ego after the other. This is the final battle between darkness and light, or between fear and love. And fear is on its last legs. And all the channels will tell you, they're like, it is such a privilege, such a mighty privilege to be alive in this bastion of order and perfection, the razor's edge of reality creation, number one. And number two, at this time, like when you get to see the lights come on, yeah, there's going to be some chaos and there's going to be some collapse of older systems, making way for new systems. And you get to be there like on birthday zero. So people who are attuned, and some are more attuned than others, can immediately resonate with like, yeah, this just feels right. This, like, I just knew it, but I didn't know what I knew. Others, you know, they passed the tests to be here right now. They paid their dues. This is not a place you pay dues. This is a place where you reap dues that were earlier paid. Now, you still have to do the work, but what could be better than doing work that brings on the light and enables your full power? And thank goodness that we don't have to wait for somebody else to flip the switch. It's better than that. We flip the switch, but we've got to realize that we are, you know, we're the ones who had our hand on it, turning it off until now. So I think everybody who opens to it, who considers what these channels are sharing, will immediately begin to feel a comfort and a familiarity, because it's part of the reason they're here right now.
I just think it's so important. These voices from discarnate entities and higher density entities and councils, all of them are adding another level that we just simply can't get from our own lived experience. And sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it's profound. But what I do find is that the discussion of channeling to begin with, part of what we experience in the new earth is that we are all channels and we have an interaction, a relationship with these entities. They want to help us, they want to guide us, and it's just like, please let us, but they will not violate our free will. And I'd like to get your perspective on what you've learned from your channels of what their role is in this process.
Oh, this is juicy stuff. But as you said, they're not, it's like the rule or the law of the jungle. I just got back from South Africa. You know, you have to leave it the way you found it. And if you see some poor impala about to be devoured by lions, hands off, let it be. There's order, there's love, there's meaning. And these guides are in the same conundrum. They want to help us desperately, but they can't cross a line where we become dependent on them. They can't cross a line where we worship them or give away our power or hinge everything on their decisions. They know they can't cross the line, but they have all said that they can help us if we ask for help. If we can go that far, they can give us information. They don't give us all the information. They know stuff, I'm sure, that is only privy to those who mine it within. But they definitely can give a leg up to an open heart and an open mind who's asked for help. This, they've made clear, is possible. And I just got to throw something out there, Brian, because something that just blew my mind at the beginning of my journey. You know, there are these higher realm beings, call them spirit guides, and they are. Call them angels, some of them are. There are also, and this should be fine for your audience, there are ETs. There are not just from ethereal realms, but from the physical universe that we know, who reside in their own physical body right now, whose own civilization, whether planet Brohashka or Arcturians or the Pleiades and beyond, there's millions of civilized, countless civilized planets. They come from civilizations where the learning curve and the evolution of consciousness mimics exactly what we're going through. They went from the darkness into the light. That's part of the journey, part of the pathway to being immersed into these lower densities, that the lights go out, you forget who you are, you don't know you're powerful, you're using only your physical senses until you start asking new questions, going within, asking for help. And then the lights begin coming on. So these folks that are ETs and or higher dimensional density beings have been through what we're going through in their own civilizations, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they're learning and doing and playing in other ways beyond perhaps my ability to comprehend, but they remember how much they stumbled and how much they fell and how slippery the slope seems to be when you're in the darkness. And so they're just like, they're literally brothers and sisters of the divine. I asked Frank from Brohashka, channeled by Tracy Farquhar, a co-author of mine in an earlier book. I said, what's it like to see you? What's it like to be on your planet? And they said, both our physical beings and life on our planet are unimaginably different than your physical being and your life, which really kind of gave me the creeps. Unimaginably different. But our spiritual path is virtually identical, moving from fear to love, from separation to unity, from dealing with the evil spirits of jealousy or rage, or those were the real evil spirits of biblical times, not ghosts and hooligans, but the belief and the persuasion that we're flawed, we're limited, we're broken, we're sinners, we're outcast, those are the evil spirits that we all have to contend with. And so their spiritual paths from the darkness into love, from fear into love, are exactly what we're going through. So who better to help us than these brothers and sisters of the divine who look different, who live somewhat differently, or maybe outrageously differently, but yet they're learning about peace and harmony and cooperation, inclusivity, respect, dignity for all, unity, the unity of the civilization. It's like they're the best guides of all. And Lyssa channels Sasha, who is one of these beings with just the most profound, loving perspective ever. And the Arcturian Council, same thing. It's crazy that we're in touch. We're literally in touch with ETs, but then it's not crazy at all. It's just crazy to formerly closed minds.
One thing I can say, Mike, is Mike, you're like a great DJ. You pick the right tracks. You know what I mean because there's some channels out there that are fear based, that are way too specific about current events. As soon as I see them, like that does not resonate with me. I don't think they're on the same. They're not teaching the same message. So I trust you. That's what's from your other books. I trust you, and so when these channels and you confirm that these are powerful messages. They come from a place of love and unity. I mean, you had to sort of had to test them yourself and see if they resonated with you in putting it in this book, right?
Yeah, Lyssa, what were you going to say?
Yeah, sorry about that.
I actually wanted to go back to one of the questions Brian asked. You were asking if we've encountered people about who are saying, this is why I'm here. And something stuck in my head when you asked that question, because I kind of get this question a lot, but there is a misunderstanding that in order to experience this awakening, that you have to do something. Like you have to become a channel, or you have to be this author or this great healer. And it's a lot of pressure on people because they feel that if they're not doing that, then they're failing somehow why they came at this time. But I really think it's important for those of you listening to know that, yes, this is why you're here, to experience this time, to add to this awakening energy. But you can do it as a mom. You can do it as a dad. You can do it as a housewife or a house husband or a garbage man or a McDonald's worker or whatever it is, because it has nothing to do with what we're doing in the external world. It has more to do with who we are becoming inside of ourselves. And that leaks out into the reality, and that is the fuel for change. So please don't think you have to have this big mission. just let the awakening unfold, and follow it, and it will be enough.
I get this message when I was reading the book. It felt like you guys were the Avengers that had come to sort of save the planet. What are we saving it from? Ourselves, I guess. But it's like we need this perspective, this catalyst. And I felt like, you know, the entities that you're channeling have done this on other planets. These heroes that have gone to other planets and helped them with their shift. So.
Yeah, and I would like to answer that question too, because now that I've channeled for so long and I've channeled for so many people, I've heard so many people say, how can I help? Like, what can I do to serve more? And it's always been a reason for me to feel good about humanity, is to hear how many people. There are a few people who are like, I want to win the lottery, but there are a lot more people who say, I just want to help. How can I help? And that's what they want to know about, that they want to serve. And I've heard, by the way, I've heard Matt Kahn say the same thing that Lyssa just said about how sometimes you can do your work and your ministry and help people just by working a regular job. It doesn't have to be that you go out and drop everything and start your own healing business, because those things can take time to take off, you know, and people have to realize that it's just a transition that you go through. Like, I didn't start channeling in 2010 and be able to support myself with channeling, not even until like 2015 or something, you know. Was I really doing well enough with it to be able to support myself? So there's a process and a transition to get there, but you still can be of service no matter what you're doing, and putting yourself out there in the world and being kind and really compassionate towards other people. That's how you serve. And just anchoring in higher frequency energies every time you sit and meditate, or you sit to intend to channel. Because a lot of people think, if I'm not speaking words, I'm not channeling, but that's not true. Because if you are sitting and meditating, or sitting under a tree and receiving energies from above, that energy is coming in and it's moving through your body, and you're anchoring it in, and it's going across the grid lines to wherever it's needed on Mother Earth, to other places like the Middle East and Ukraine and all these places that need it. And that person did channel, but they didn't speak, and it may just take time for them to speak. There's an inner mechanism that I don't understand yet. Lyssa, I don't know if you understand it, but something in us turns energy into an expression of sound or words or light language. And I don't know what it is that clicks into place. I've heard Bashar talk about a channeling chakra, but I certainly don't know how I do it. You know, I just know that after a while of sitting and just channeling, and it looking like this, you know, with my head and neck and face doing that for like 45 minutes, I eventually was able to say words that felt like they were coming from somewhere else, you know, and that's not something people understand so much about channeling, is that the channeling part is the energy, and the speaking part for it is that person's unique interpretation of that energy. And so if a person is taking care of themselves, taking care of their chakras and their what they're exposing themselves to, and doing their own work on themselves and their relationships, and you know, all the ways that they need to let go of things and activate other things, then they're probably going to be a clearer channel who's saying things that are more in alignment with the energies they're receiving. And somebody who is obsessed with the cabal and politics, then they're going to be there when they speak, they're going to be speaking about those things. It's just, that's how it works. I think, you know, you typically don't have somebody channel something that's completely out of the realm of where they're normally vibrating as a person.
Right. The one common thread from all these channelings and others is service. It's the teaching of how to serve, what service means. It's the teaching about love, where we're learning these lessons of love. And it's amazing. The simple concept is so complicated, so complex. There's so much to learn about love. And that's what I'm getting from the number one thing is service and how to serve and how to love. Do you have any perspectives on that?
I'll throw something out real quick with my Catholic background. I used to run the other way when somebody would say, you know, put the needs of others before your own. I'd be like, that's not why I chose to be here. I want to be me.
Mhm.
And while my life today has become really a life of service, I never think, well, how can I go help more people? I'm sorry if this sounds rough, but I never think, how can I go help more people?
Mhm.
I am totally exclusively driven to help this guy. And the more I help this guy, bizarrely and freakishly, the more I help other people. And I've deduced that, you know, I think this is moving away from separation consciousness to unity consciousness, which is part of the flow. The more my cups are overflowing, the more broadly I define self. And now when I think of self, I think of my family, I think of my team, my community, I think of people watching this. It's like, oh, I do want this to be awesome for everybody. And that's become kind of, you know, I'm aiming to serve, but I go where I need to go on my terms. And by finding out what lights me up and how to be better lit up, it automatically translates into service. So I'd like to just, for those who may be coming from the darkness that I came from, you know, this is not about denying yourself. This is not about, you know, you don't matter, other people matter more. This is about fully being yourself, being self-full, not selfless. You will be the greatest service to all, and you will begin defining yourself in terms of the masses. And so what you most want will be what those who you reach also most want.
Can I add something about the service? I'm going to share something that Sasha, the Pleiadian being that I channel, has shared in the past, and it has to do with her history, the history of her people. They went through a period of time, much like we are going through right now, where they did not want to see their own darkness, and thus they couldn't access it in order to heal it. So they kind of put it in a closet, let's say. And when you continually put your own darkness in a closet and you're not willing to deal with it, an immense amount of pressure builds up. And somehow that pressure has to come out. So the way their civilization manifested that pressure coming out was through a planet-wide, species-wide plague that they could not heal. And it went through many generations, and it was very devastating for them. And again, this was the same period of time in their civilization as we are in now. So the transition from third to fourth density. So what they did was that they had to eventually tap into the higher consciousness, their own higher consciousness, and receive the information about what they were doing, that they were, you know, separating their own darkness, and they had to go through a period of integrating it. But when they got through that period, what emerged for them was this drive to be of service. And this is where the Pleiadian excitement about service comes from. Because once they passed through this darkness, the only thing left for them was to share the light. So they began then to be of service to each other, to other civilizations. And what they found was that for them, service was a way to fully get into their heart. Not from the mental version of compassion, oh, I sympathize with that person, but another way that brings you to a vibration of deeper love than they were ever able to access before. So the idea of service then can be expressed on so many levels, but when it is embraced in an authentic way, with the sincerity of the one being of service, it will completely transform you.
Yeah, that's the perspective I've got from so many channelings. It's not oh, I really need the compassion. I need to help you. It's almost like an addiction, like this great joy they get from serving. And they just like, please give me more. I want to serve you. I want to, please, because any opportunity they have to serve it brings them their own heart-based joy. It is a selfish service for others. That's what I get from it. It's this drive, like they love it. It's fun. It's inspiring when I hear that. So before we go into, I want to hear, we were going to maybe channel a little bit here in a second, but one final question. Because I'm a sci-fi junkie, and so I love to imagine what a fourth density Earth would be like. I like to imagine, I always am playing around with these cool ideas of a social memory complex where I see each other as self, and the veil is open and I'm accessing the Akashic and the technologies that are available. And I have these cool visions. I want to get an idea of your vision of what this amazing new Earth will be like. If anybody can volunteer, go ahead.
The first thing I will say is, like you were talking about at the very beginning, or Daniel, I think, was talking about, it's very difficult to have words to describe it. But when you were talking, I found maybe a way to describe it. Sometimes I describe things using contrast. So right now, the way you described it as an Earth human, which is the way all of us would think of it, is, wow, what would it feel like to be able to access the Akashic, or to be able to live in this way all the time? And when we imagine it now, we imagine it as a tool that we can use, like, oh, I can pick up this pen, or I can not have the pen in my hand. But in reality, it becomes so much a part of us that it's actually a natural expression. So if you were to ask Sasha, what does it feel like to do that? From her point of view, it would be like, well, we don't know what it's like not to, because it's so much an integration of who we are. And I think if you, and a lot of the viewers, think back, especially if you've been in this field for a long time, if you think back to when you were earlier on in your spiritual journey, compared to where you are now, that you've already started to integrate a lot of this and you're already naturally accessing it. So imagine that a millionfold, and then you have the future. Yes.
It's so exciting. And that's part of why we're all talking about this, is there's this unwritten excitement for the potential of this future that is so amazing. What do you think is going to happen, Daniel?
Well, definitely will be amongst extraterrestrials. There will be this joining of humanity with the galactic community, which is, of course, going to expand the way we have to then look at ourselves. You know, just like we had to understand the sun doesn't revolve around the earth revolves around the sun. We're not the only game in town, you know, then you have to change the way you look at the totality of everything once you realize, oh, there are, because I think what we'll first come to realize is not just we are not alone in the universe, but this isn't the only Earth, that there's parallel Earths, there's other realities and timelines and universes, and that's going to blow people's minds way beyond the fact that there are other beings out there, because I think a lot of people do kind of understand that. But you're seeing it coming through in our science fiction writing about so many more stories are about multiple Earths, multiple realities that people can explore and do explore. And so that change in the way everyone's able to look at themselves and their place in the universe will be a huge start. Being able to, I think we're seeing it now with 3D printers being like a stepping stone or a slippery slope to having maybe like Star Trekian replicators in every home, so that there's less of a reliance on, okay, if I need something, then I have to go out and make money and then go to the store and buy it. And, you know, there'll be more of like, my needs are taken care of. And now what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to express? Who am I really? I don't have to go and dedicate myself to a job I don't really like and then come home, feel too tired. So I don't feel like actually creating anything myself, but everyone's own unique self-expression will be more embraced. I remember my first teacher, Deepak Chopra, saying there's no spare parts in the universe. Everybody is here to be a specific version of the divine to complete the puzzle or the tapestry or whatever imagery you like better. But I do think that there'll be more of an emphasis on that, on the individual being able to use their time to show everyone else who they really are.
Which is reflected in our fiction. We kind of see glimpses and images in our fiction and the movies and books that we read of of that world, just like you're talking about. What do you think is going to happen, Mike?
Well, you summed it up really well in human terms, Brian, when you were speaking of the all that you saw. But I think it'll be such a different style of living that it will be hard to comprehend. But for sure, there's going to be a bonding love that's palpable in every moment of every day. I've heard Sasha say that where she expresses and lives, there's like this, I think it was something to the effect of like an indescribable joy at all times. So in my mind, I process that as kind of like a euphoric bliss all the time. Not a giddy, silly thing, but just an acceptance, an appreciation, a profound wonder, but not with mysteries, but a wonder because yet there's still yet more to create. And wherever we focus with our wonder, worlds will be born. It'll certainly be radically different than this, but yet we will still be human. And that was very clear from the channels. We will still be human. And being human is an extremely spiritual experience, except for the way we've gone about it in the last couple of millennia. But it's a sacred experience, and we will be human, but aware that we are much, much more. And so I think it'll be just, literally what they say, heaven on earth. We live there now, but we'll know it. We'll finally know it.
It's so exciting. The excitement is palpable. And so I want to get a chance to speak to Lyssa. You channel Sasha, and you mentioned this is what I love is it's an individual that's physically on a planet that's available to you to communicate with it. So tell us a little bit more, and then if you could, we'll talk to Sasha.
Okay. Well, the very basic summary is that I started to have a lot of UFO experiences in the 80s, well, starting in 79. And what I didn't realize was it was preparatory for me. So I started to channel in 1985, but it wasn't until 88 when Sasha first came to me and introduced herself and said, now, Brian, we're going to go into even the more incredible, although anyone who knows Darryl and Bashar, this might not be so incredible, but it's the same kind of relationship where Sasha says she's an incarnation of me, but we would see it from the Earth point of view as a future self, but it's more like a parallel self. So at the very beginning in 88, Sasha was very, very different from me, much more soft-spoken and much more feminine. But over the years, I was told, she said, we would integrate because this is the beauty of channeling. For individuals who do the inner work, the channeling shifts you in such a way where you experience an integration process within yourself. When I was trained as a channel in the 80s, I was trained by some teachers who were part of a UCLA study regarding channeling, which in the 80s was pretty much unheard of. And they were psychology students for doctorates. And their philosophy was that if you clean yourself, if you do the inner work necessary to become a channel, what begins to happen is that you and the channeled energies integrate and the frequencies start entraining together. So since we might say the human frequency is lower than the Pleiadian frequency, basically what it's done is help raise me to meet at a level, a common ground level with Sasha, so helping to raise my consciousness. So we fast forward now 30 something years later, and the Sasha I am channeling now is a much deeper, much more integrated version than the Sasha I was channeling in the 80s. And you'll see that there's a different, maybe different mannerisms a little bit, but it's not super different from me. And over the 40 years, I've also been able to access her without the trance state. The trance state is a little bit easier for me when I'm channeling more detailed information because it's a more focused state. So maybe that gives you enough information. I don't know. It's 30 years of summary there.
Yeah. So we would love the opportunity to speak with Sasha in any way possible.
Okay.
All right.
So I will go into the channeling state. It does not take me that long, maybe under a minute.
Okay.
My eyes will be closed, and then she will say when she's here, and you guys can engage with her in whatever way you wish. So it'll be just a moment. Greetings to you all. This is Sasha here. What a pleasure and an honor to be asked to share with you today. So we will invite you to direct this session in whatever way you wish to go.
Well, it's an honor to meet you, Sasha. Thank you so much for your contribution and teachings. I would first ask if you have any messages for us that you would like to share regarding our current landscape of consciousness on this planet.
Oh, that's a big subject, but we will narrow it down to what we see to be the most important thing in this moment now as you are asking the question. As you have seen on your world, there is a great, what appears on the surface at least, to be a great polarity that is being created. On the surface, you are seeing that there is more separation and side taking, if you will, than at a lot of times in your history. And many of you are feeling the stress of that. So we'd like to address that because we know it's easy to believe that that is a sign that something is going awry, that something is wrong. But in reality, we would say it is actually something that is going right. What do we mean by that? As we have witnessed so many civilizations making this shift from third to fourth density, of course, they all have their different styles of the transformation. But one thing that is very common with all civilizations is that they eventually have to go through a type of alchemy. When we say alchemy, what we are referring to is inner alchemy within the consciousness in which the poles of your being begin to come together and experience an integration. Because one of the qualities of third density is high polarity. One of the qualities of fourth density is the integration of polarity. So you are on that bridge right now where you have one foot just leaving third density and your weight is leaning much more into fourth density, but you have to, in a sense, clean up what is left to be cleaned up and unhealed from your third density experience. Okay, so enough philosophy. We will simply say that, what does this mean for you as individuals and how can you navigate this? In general, we would recommend that you watch yourself with objectivity, without self-judgment, for when you get into a loop of polarity, when you fall to one side or the other. Now, we're not saying don't have preferences. There's a big difference between preference and polarity. Preference is common for physical beings, coffee versus tea, etc. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about watching yourself for when you go into the type of separation and polarity within yourself that drains your energy, that keeps you focused on the external world instead of your internal spiritual navigation. And in whatever way you can, even if it is a visualization, can you bring yourself to that center point between the poles? We would say it is like a point of neutrality, where you can still have preferences, but you're not leaning heavily to one side or another, and you're not judging one side or another. The longer you can allow yourself to stay in this center point with your full presence, and for a lot of people, this would be in meditation, for example, then the longer you can do that, the more you are giving your inner energy a chance to experience this alchemy and to build a momentum within yourself. So this state of compassionate neutrality, if you will, and full presence becomes more dominant within you. And that is the alchemy of consciousness. The minute you fall off into polarity and being pulled with the drama of the external world, the more you break that cycle, you lessen the momentum towards your full integration. So that is our little hint, shall we say, for now, especially as you navigate this reality. Well, we could say even the next year, if you allow yourself to do this inner work within yourself and to notice when you are lapsing into polarized thought within yourself, and you can bring yourself back to the center, you're going to experience more and more alchemy. And guess what? That inner alchemy, each and every one of you will experience, will then affect the collective consciousness of your world, which then affects the planetary awakening. So going back to what you were talking about before, earlier in this session, you were talking about how each person can lend their energy, can be of service. This is one of the most important ways that all of you can be of service, because it literally changes your own vibration, and then that change adds to the vibration of the collective. So we can get very chatty, but we'll summarize. Hopefully that assists you for today.
Thank you. This provokes a question that I have as I try to resolve my own polarities. I have found difficulty in dealing with it. It appears that I will encounter my other selves that are in an entirely different reality bubble, a sort of mass psychosis. I'll be standing out in the rain and they'll tell me that there's no rain, or it's the best example that I can give. So how do I resolve this, trying to avoid the external, but living in this world when I encounter those that are seemingly in an entirely different reality from what my truth is?
Yes, we know this is one of the biggest questions for all of you right now. Usually the channel has the graphic on her desk. She does not have it today, but many of you will remember there is a cartoon or a meme that is often shown on your internet, where two people in different perspectives are looking at a number that can be either a 6 or a 9. One will swear it's a 9, the other will swear it is a 6. This is kind of energetically where you all find yourself now. We invite you to think about that graphic and think about When we say think about, we don't want you to think about, we want you to feel about, let's say. Feel about how the 6 for you is what is real and what is comfortable. And let yourself allow the other person to feel that the 9 is what is real for them. So you do not have to engage in it. You do not have to support it. You do not have to fake smile your way through it, so to speak. If it comes to the point where you have to say something, this is one of the important points. How you say what you say is that alchemy point. So if you scream, you're wrong, then you've lost the opportunity for alchemy. But if you hold that space of really, truly feeling inside that that is real for them, but that you don't have to engage in that reality, and you stay comfortable and centered in yours, and you can still love and respect them, but maybe then say, well, I see the 6 and not the 9, but I recognize you as another aspect of myself, and therefore I can acknowledge that it's okay to disagree. You understand, the words don't matter. It's more of the energy or the attitude, because this is, as we see on your world, as has been seen in many, many other worlds, this distortion of reality perspective, reality bubbles, as you've called them, is probably going to get worse before it gets better. Because the more worse it gets, when you have that intense conflicting energy between poles, that confliction creates an energy that actually fosters alchemy even more dramatically. So you are, in a sense, walking on the road towards your alchemy through this polarity. Does that make sense, my dear?
Yes, very much. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You are very welcome.
Academically, I understand forgiveness. I've read the Bible and I understand learning how to forgive others, but I'm continuously encountered by individuals and catalysts that make it difficult for me to forgive. And I would like to know on how I can forgive in my heart so that I can allow to integrate these polarities. Can you help me with that?
Well, we will do our best, though, of course, everyone's journey is unique. You have a saying in English, forgive and forget. However, forgiveness doesn't have to be forgetting. So you do not have to forget. Now, we would say you've probably already done this work, but if someone has wronged you, if you can look at what it has taught you from a place of value, that is one of the first seeds of forgiveness. Now, when we say what it has taught you, this brings up a whole other track that many humans go on, which is, okay, here's the lesson. I got it. I see it. And then you start berating yourself. I should have been smarter. Why didn't I see it? I should have made a wrong choice, a different choice. I'm so stupid. I should have. I hate myself. I hate myself. So when we talk about this idea of seeing the lesson within it, we also have to put the caveat in there to also observe your reaction to the lesson. Because if there's any unhealed energy of self-judgment there, the forgiveness process will also be very difficult. And finally, we can say that if it was a person that wronged you, and let's say the person, whether or not they are, as you would call, a good person or a bad person, which again is a polarized view, but wherever they are at, their action to you most likely was never about you, but it was about them. So the wounds that each person has really shapes how they navigate in the world. And wounds can cause you to navigate negatively, but they can also cause you to navigate positively. So if you can allow yourself to sense or feel the wounds in the person that wronged you, and get to a point where you can have compassion for the pain within them that caused the wounds, that is also going to start that alchemy within you that leads to forgiveness. Forgiveness is not one of those things where you can force yourself to experience. You cannot mentally navigate yourself through forgiveness. So instead, you kind of have to emotionally navigate yourself through all these different places we have just talked about. And where you eventually arrive at over time, you will notice that the charge, the trigger, is lessened and lessened. And that is when you will know the forgiveness process has begun to unfold within you.
Thank you for that. I'd like to, my own lived experience of the shift that I'm experiencing is that I am a greater manifester every day. The energies I'm working with are greater. I'm creating the world around me faster and more profoundly. Can I use this power of creation to aid in others, be it in terms of war or famine or hunger? Is there ways I can use this amazing ability to serve others?
Yes and no, because you're in a polarized reality, so we have to give you a polarized answer.
Mhm.
We'll start with the no. The no is that what you will all come to understand as a species, as you move into fourth density, is that the ego itself, the ego personality, Brian or Mike or Daniel, is really powerless to affect change in reality. We know the egos don't want to hear that. The ego or the personality, the personal identity, is merely a projection of the one that is in a separated form, but it itself has no power. When you are fully in third density, this is not understood. And so there is a misunderstanding that it is you as the creator that can do these things. But now, as you're moving into fourth density, you said a key here, my dear. You said the energy's changing and things are more easily manifesting. We are going to suggest for you, they are not more easily manifesting because Brian is doing more and focusing more. It is actually the opposite. It is that Brian, the personality, the illusion, the fictional character, so to speak, is actually relaxing more, is actually surrendering more. So what you are doing is allowing the universe to move through you, in a sense, bypassing the character, moving through you so that you become a natural extension of the universe. And that is actually what true service is. So we come full circle again with this idea of service that was discussed earlier. So because you're seeing this, my dear, we would say then that it is an acknowledgement from the universe that you are getting out of your own way more, that you are stepping back, the character is stepping back, and the universe is moving through you. Therefore, when we said there was a yes or no, the no was Brian, the fictional character, no, cannot try to end world hunger. It doesn't work that way. And in a fourth density reality, it really doesn't work that way. The yes part of the answer is that as Brian, the fictional character, relaxes away from the whole process of creation, because it's fictional anyway, and the universe moves through you more, you will be directed exactly to the places where your energy is needed the most. So you don't have to, in that sense, choose to end world hunger. The universe is going to work through you in the unique way that you are suited to be of service. So this is pointing to the difference of how operation or navigation in a physical reality, third density versus fourth density, how they differ. One, there's a lot of effort. Third density, a lot of effort and will. Fourth density, it's the opposite. A lot of letting go, a lot of surrendering, a lot of trusting that everything will be as it needs to be if you get out of the way and if you allow that universe to work through you. We think you're doing a pretty good job with that, my dear.
Well, Sasha, thank you so much. It has been an honor to be able to ask you these questions. I sure hope I get more opportunities to talk with you further. And just for my audience, thank you so much for answering just these questions.
You would be most welcomed into our reality at any time, and we will be happy to chat again. Much love to you and your audience. We will take our leave now.
I always like to ask you, what images are going through your head as you're experiencing that?
Sometimes it depends on the type of stuff that was channeled.
Yeah.
So in this case, it was more energy flows. Like it's very dreamlike. So like in an hour from now, I'll forget. But like the last question, what I was kind of seeing was like two different channels of energy. One like a hose, one flowed, and one had a lot of resistance to it, where the water's trying to move through it. So that would have been the third density, I think, and the fourth density was the more flowing one.
Interesting. And sometimes those visual images are they have more clues in them, than than the
No,
words
and you're
that come
right,
out.
because very often Sasha uses a lot of metaphor to get the point across.
Right. So we wanted to get a chance to hear Daniel channel again, and for everybody who hasn't heard of Daniel, Daniel has a very unique and wonderful way of channeling, and he goes through a little process of integration that's very physically oriented, as he explained in our interview. When he channels, it's an energy it's physical, and that's why I love it. And just be prepared, and it's fun. And Daniel, welcome
Yeah,
again.
I'll get the Arcturians. Just know that the tones and sounds that you hear are not me, it's them. It's them coming through me and making the tones and sounds. So it's part of the transmission. Greetings. Well, the Arcturian Council. Oh, pleased to connect with all of you. Yes, and we are very happy to take your wonderful questions.
First of all, I'm honored to get another chance to speak to the council, Arcturian Council. Thank you so much for your contribution and teachings in this moment.
Yes.
Do you have any messages that you would like to share before I ask any questions?
We are so happy to be a part of this conversation that we have, of course, been witnessing from afar, and to notice how far you have all come in the perspectives that you hold. This is about changing the way you are viewing and experiencing reality so that you can change the way that reality then unfolds in front of you, and seeing yourselves as the creators who are creating with consciousness rather than only through using the hands and the tools that you have at your disposal, but being able to shift yourselves and take on these new perspectives is very encouraging, and it is a sign of an advancing consciousness, which is what you have there on Earth.
You speak about in the book, The Great Awakening, about being awake, and I'd like to please share your lessons on the process of awakening and what it is to be awakened in this shift.
It's that moment when you discover, and perhaps discover it viscerally. It becomes an experience that you have of knowing yourself as an aspect of the divine, and seeing everyone else as well as aspects of the divine. And then moving forward from that moment of having that understanding, it's putting it into practice. So you awaken, but then you have to operate in the world as an awakened being, which means you have to walk the talk. You have to put into practice that which you have come to know, and know so fully that it becomes a part of your awareness, your everyday awareness, that this is who I am, this is who they are, and I will treat myself and everyone else as such.
It would appear from your teachings that you're teaching a sort of an emotional intelligence, that our emotions are a navigation system. Can you please help guide me in how I can come to understand and use my emotions in this shifting process?
Yes. Well, you have to care about how you feel. It has to matter enough to you how you feel in order to listen to that guidance that you are getting. And one of the ways in which you can become more sensitive and care more about how you feel is through meditation. You're more likely to be aware of what it is you're feeling when you are getting yourself in touch with what's going on inside of you by stopping all action, by closing your eyes, by stopping all thinking about the past and the future, and just being present with what is, which will then make you more aware of that inner sensitivity that you have. And when you're able to say, yes, I want to go in this direction because it lights me up, versus, no, I don't want to go in this direction where I'm just arguing with people, gossiping about people, making fun of people, those types of things that don't feel good inside when I do them, but have been something that other people have done and it looks like they're having fun doing them, or it's become habitual, or it's part of my society, so I want to fit in. So you start to say, I don't really want to fit in that much that I'm willing to sacrifice how I feel. And instead, I'm going to go do the thing that makes me feel the way that I want to feel, and I'll continue down that track as best I can.
You speak a lot in your channelings and in the book in your channeling about the supernatural gifts and the miracles that we will be able to perform as we shift into this fourth density, fifth dimensional environment. Please provide guidance on how I can access my gifts and or teach others to perform miracles with these new energies.
Well, first of all, you have to believe that it's possible for you to access those gifts. And one of the ways that you can do that is by talking to other channelers who will demystify the process, or psychics who tell you exactly how they're getting the information they're getting, other people who have accessed healing abilities who talk about their process. You start to understand, all right, there is a way, there is an entry point here for me. And it does start with me being able to let go of my resistance, let go of my doubt, and simply embrace what is always there and always has been there for me. When I close my eyes and relax and focus on my breathing, I start to feel something. I start to notice something. Everything becomes different in those moments, and I can express something other than what I normally do express. And so it starts with your being able to believe that it's happening when it's happening, trusting it, and being able to move forward with it.
You discuss in the process of the shift to the fifth dimension that we are receiving downloads and new energies all the time, and this can result in what you call ascension symptoms. If you could speak further on this and how I can maneuver through these ascension symptoms, it would be great.
Well, ascension symptoms can also be described as the inner resistance that you have to those changes or to those energies. And so when something comes up within you and it is an ascension symptom, it doesn't mean that all you can do is ride it out. You can ask yourself, well, how am I in resistance to this energy? Where am I tensing up in my body? Am I hydrated? Am I allowing myself to rest and relax enough to experience myself more as an energetic being who is evolving? And if you can do those things, then you can mitigate those experiences of those higher frequency energies coming to you and running through you.
One of the fascinating things that you teach is that I am a conduit for these energies, that I can become a conduit for these energies to express them and share them with those around us. Is there any way that you can instruct me on how to be a better conduit for these higher level energies?
Well, it starts by recognizing that your body is always being animated by non-physical energy. It's not your brain that causes everything to move in the way that it moves. And it's not just because you have a physical body that you get to play this character that is Brian. It's because that body, which has its own consciousness and is its own entity, is being animated by something that is non-physical. So getting in touch with the truth of who you are as the non-physical consciousness animating and giving life to the body, that's a good place to start in recognizing that energy is who and what you are, and it is a consciousness that is expanding all the time and is being allowed into that body in greater degrees and to a greater extent all the time.
Another thing that you teach is about our integration with our higher selves, and we're in this process of integrating with our higher selves during this shift. So how do I know that and can you give instructions on how I can integrate with my higher self and become my higher self?
Well, at times you are being your higher self. You are being the best version of yourself that you can be. And those are the times when you are heart centered, when you are going with the flow, when you are following your bliss, listening to those guidance emotions that come up within you, and really paying attention to subtle nuances that are telling you yes to this and not now to that, perhaps, and following through with those intuitive hits, allowing those impulses to be what guides you in your day-to-day living. That allows you to operate as one of those people who seems like they're walking on air. They have a spring in their step. Everything is going their way all the time because they simply are allowing the truth of who they are to come up from within the center of the heart and to be the powerful force that you can be as one who's integrated with that non-physical energy.
Well, I want to thank you again for the teachings and continually teaching us and providing your message. We appreciate it greatly. Is there any other messages that you have for us before you go?
Go forth and be yourselves. Be true to yourselves and know that everything is working out, that you have helpers, that there's more to everything than you can see and know. And as you trust in the process, trust in the path that you are on, things will start to unfold for you in ways that you cannot possibly imagine right now.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly.
We are the Arcturian Council, and we have enjoyed connecting with you.
Wow. Well, I just want to thank all of you for joining me. What a wonderful opportunity this has been to talk about this. This is so exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike, for making this happen.
Brian, you made it happen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian,
Thank you,
for
Lisa.
having this channel
Daniel,
for
you
us
guys are
all.
amazing. I'm so excited for this book. It's The Great Awakening. It's going to find it on Amazon. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
It's like the Traveling Wilburys. It's like a super band that all these amazing authors in one book, and you can see all these perspectives. It's amazing that you made this happen. So thank you so much, and we'll be talking to you all again soon. And welcome to the Reality Revolution.
We return you now to your local announcement.